Has been a public reaction over the reports that SABC Chief Operations Officer Hlaudi Motsoeneng received a salary increase of close to R1 million. Details of his salary were contained on the SABC's annual financial statement tabled in Parliament last week. There have also been reports that the SABC is not financially stable. Well, this morning we sought to verify the accuracy of these assertions. So joining me in studio to talk about this is, firstly, SABC Chief Financial Officer James Aguma. We've also got SABC COO Hlaudi Motsoeneng, and rounding off the panel is Heinus, who is the commercial advisor here at the SABC. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us and welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Leah.
I suppose the first question that needs to be asked, and we're going to let's put this to the financial officer here at the SABC. Is SABC financially sustainable?
Yeah, thanks, Leanne, for inviting us here. I think the SABC is financially sustainable, because we need to even define what sustainable means. All I can say is that it's financially sustainable, if I may use the word, because there's several indicators that show that it is. One of them would be the net asset position. Do we have more assets than liabilities? And we're saying yes, we do. We have about 1.9 billion rands of assets. That means we have more assets than liabilities to the extent of about 1.9 billion. Another indicator we could use is, do we have cash in the bank? And we're saying yes, we've got about, in the last financial year, 1 billion 17 million rands in the bank. Another indicator would be, can we pay our current liabilities? That is, liabilities that fall due within 12 months. And we're saying, yes, we have 2 rands to settle each rand of liabilities. That is, if you get the current assets and the current liabilities, we've got 2 rands to pay each rand of liabilities. Another indicator would be, do we have future income that we think we can earn? And we're saying there's no indication from the market that they have dumped the SABC. I mean, if you look at advertising revenue, it might have dropped in the current year, but all we're saying is that it was a cut across the board by advertisers of their marketing budget. So anybody in the broadcasting space would actually feel the pinch of the cut in budget. But the SABC having the top 10 or so soapies, and so on, just shows that our content is good enough to attract advertising. If you go to radio, I mean, we command over 69% of listenership. So the SABC is here to stay, and the fundamentals are right.
I think what's being quoted mostly, and perhaps we haven't addressed that, is the fact of the loss of 401 million rand that we reported, whereas in the same period last year we were reporting increases. And this is what I think people are concerned about. Yeah. Should they be concerned? Should we be concerned here at the SABC with a loss of over 400 million?
Yeah, you see, a loss over a period of time is, over a 12-month period, is not something you can be so proud about if you do not understand the origins of that loss. And all we're saying is that over the years, if you look at a stretch between 2008 and thereabouts 2013-14, the SABC was under austerity. So it was in a survival mode. A lot of the funding of our operations were out of borrowed cash. Remember we had an overdraft of about 89 million, I think, in 2010 there. And then we also had a 1 billion loan that a government guaranteed loan that we got from Nedbank. So when you're in such a situation, usually you are in a survival mode. So you'll see, if you analyze our financials over that span of time, that there was disinvestment in content because we were not buying content. Hence, viewerships dropped because we had a lot of repeats. We were not even recruiting staff, because you remember when you get a government guaranteed loan, there are going to be strict conditions on who you should employ, how many should be employed, how much you will invest in particular in particular areas. You'll also have to give a fixed return, let's say a profit figure. So what you work towards is in establishing a certain amount of profits in that period. But as a result of that, the SABC got to a point where we did not have, the skills. We did not recruit skills that we required to deliver on our mandate and so on. So we said, let's get out of this phase, pay the loan, then we start investing or trying to do a catch-up. And one of the critical areas that we picked that we were not doing very well was around recruitment of human resources to deliver on our strategy. And we went in. This year, I think we've recruited about 255 people, mainly in HR, because we needed to stabilize the working environment. So we had to recruit experts to turn around, the working environment, which was not very conducive because of the stress of that period. Another thing that we had to deal with is technology. We had to recruit staff because we're going into DTT. So we had to recruit people to replace those who had left. And if you look at the aging structure really in the SABC, if you look at the bell curve of the age, you'll see that in the technology sector we have a lot of older people who are phasing out. So we had to recruit people to replace this. We also had to ensure that we budget for royalties, which have not been paid for a long time. I can tell you this current year, we put in 153 million, if you look at the financials, over and above what was accounted for last year to pay royalties. So there is a reason for the loss. If you look at it, all we are saying is that the current regime that we're dealing with is now funding a long-term strategy. So recruitment is a strategic choice, increasing the number of staff, because one of the strategic imperatives that we have in our corporate plan, for those who have had a chance to read it, is increasing news from provinces. How do you do that without recruiting journalists and so on?
So what you're talking about is the loss and also the expenses part that went up quite significantly as well. Went up about 20% to 1.28 billion, because that's also something that I suppose needs analysis, and I think that's what you have explained to us. Let's move on now from talking about the financials, how they're looked, and explaining what people have been questioning, to now the next set of questions, and that, of course, is remuneration. And people are concerned, and people talking about the fact that increments have been too high. On what basis and who decides on increments of salaries? Who decides who gets what? Anton, perhaps you would like to talk about this.
Yeah, thank you very much. The SABC, like any other organization, obviously has a remuneration policy, and it's on the basis of that salaries are determined for executive directors and also for others in the organization. So I think it's not unique to any other organization. So we don't determine our own salaries at the SABC. There's a specific policy and specific approval levels. But I think we should also put this whole matter into context. The SABC is the public broadcaster of South Africa, as we all know, and we compete in a highly competitive environment. So what is the differentiator between ourselves and our competitors? It's compelling content. So we need to focus on that as well, and also then the austerity measures that was implemented in 2009, and I'm sure that we can come back to that point.
Yeah. Anything else? I mean, when we talk about approvals on salary increments, who decides this? I mean, I know you're saying it's at certain levels, but where are these levels? Let's, I suppose, get a little bit more of an understanding.
Yeah, it's very important that people understand that when you read a set of financials, you cannot selectively pick line items. Like, you cannot go to employee costs and just say it has increased by, for argument's sake, 29% and make it a headline. You've got to read the whole annual report in totality to understand, most importantly, the strategy, which is included there under the performance of the organization, so that you can link what is happening what was intended to happen to the figures. I'll give you a simple example. People may not know that the SABC has 3,800 employees. And it's because of the nature of the organization that we have such a number of employees. I'll give you an example. Some competitors would have, for example, a news bulletin in English. So maybe, I don't know how news works, but you would probably need 10 people to deliver that. At the SABC, as a public broadcaster, we have to deliver in all official languages. So you need 9 times 10, which is 90 people, to deliver the same broadcast. So we almost have to put in context the public mandate of the SABC and understand that this is a public entity like no other in the world. The complexity is here. There's no other public broadcaster that mirrors the SABC.
Let's get to the issue at hand, and that, of course, being the CEO's salary increase, who we're going to get a response from right now. Is this within the benchmark, or the board's benchmark?
Let me answer that in the following manner. You need to contextualize this, the increase. 2.8 million was what was received in the previous financial year. 3.784 is what was paid in the current year. But you need to understand what these two reflect. 2.8 million was paid for somebody who was substantively an acting GE of provinces and regions and was earning an acting allowance. So he got 2.8 million. Current year it's 3.784. But included there is 279,000, which if deducted comes to 3.5 million. So the 279 has to be deducted because it was an ex gratia payment given to all staff, not for current performance. It was actually paid in October, November last year for performance before, because you cannot take away the fact that the SABC staff have delivered on the public mandate. They have delivered the World Cup successfully. They have broadcasted the funeral of the late state president, for which SABC got a lot of commendations around. They have delivered a lot of soccer matches and cricket and so on. So the staff work hard. And the board just said, we did not give people recognition in this period because there was austerity. So we are going to give every staff member got. So if you deduct that, effectively, the CEO's salary increased by 633,000, not the 1 million that is being bandied around. But the question is it fair?
Is it fair? Let's quickly talk about that. But
let's go to it.
I want to get your reaction straight afterwards, Hlaudi, about media reports and the criticism that you've come under because of it. So, if you, James, if you could keep this very, very short. We're running out of time.
That increase should be fair because it's the entry level for a CEO at the SABC. It is. And one thing that we need to take cognizance of is that no one can give himself a salary. We have an HR and Remuneration committee that does that.
Hlaudi, your reaction to all of these media reports around this, and you have had an exceptionally busy year.
Thank you very much, Leanne. This is very interesting. But SABC is not about individual called Hlaudi. I work with the team. What I realize is people don't read the same annual report. When they read the annual report, they look for Hlaudi in that annual report. The issue is not Hlaudi there. The issue is the performance of the SABC. And I want to stress that SABC is performing very, very well, because that is very important for me. You talk about the loss, because that is what I need to zoom in. I don't know what will be the loss, because for me, comparing with other companies, including other broadcasters, SABC will have been able to employ or recruit new people within the organization, which means when people are retrenching people, we are employing people. What do you mean? It's a loss. For us, it is very important that SABC is employing, which means financially we are sustainable. And also, we are not apologetic to pay our workers according to the benchmark, all employees of the SABC. Because the issue is SABC is been paying people more than whatever that people believe SABC people should earn. And I'm not addressing the issue of Hlaudi here, because I can't address my own issue. So the chairperson of the board did address that issue. People are saying that we are using taxpayers' money. Which is taxpayers' money that they are referring to? because we compete commercially. So government is not giving SABC money. They only give grants, which is 3% grants. The CFO can allude to that. You talk about TV license, which we can also allocate it to what you call it, taxpayers' money. It's only 8%. TV license, what we do with that money, we go and buy content. The Springbok, the Bafana Bafana, and other programs within the organization. The bulk of that money, we pay for content. When it comes to the employees of the SABC, the employees of the SABC goes and make sure that they generate revenue within this organization. In any company, if people work so hard and generate revenue themselves, this is not a taxpayer's money. Because I need to clarify this confusion about taxpayers' money. It is not a taxpayers' money. It is what people deserve. Because without people doing that, SABC will collapse. And I'm going to demonstrate again that if you look at the SABC, for us to migrate for DTT, that migration that we are dealing with, if you don't have funding, you can't migrate, you can't have channels when we migrate. So, and I have been championing that, to raise funding for this organization. That funding that I'm raising, it is also paying the personnel within this organization. So I don't know when people confuse issues that SABC is not doing well. Actually, for me, SABC is doing very well. The critical point again is SABC, it is a public broadcaster. What is the mandate of the SABC? Inform, educate, and entertain.
Yeah.
Who's supposed to fund the SABC? In other countries, a public broadcaster is funded by government. In this case, it is different within this organization. But we are able to fulfill the mandate of the SABC by using commercial revenue to sustain this organization. But also, for me, what James is referring to and other people, it is not a loss for SABC. It is not a loss because we are fulfilling our mandate. Example, we talk about the late icon Nelson Mandela. You know how much SABC we spent, which we did not even budget for that project. More than 130 million. You minus that in that 400 million. Which means we can't say because we did not budget for this project, we can't broadcast the icon's funeral or anyone, the project that is in the interest of the nation. We can't say that. For us, we are able to
account for all of the money.
To account. For me, it is not a loss, the 400 million that we are talking. It is actually delivering mandate of the organization. And we are not in a business of profits. We are not like Telkom, where we'll go and say to people, we've got shares now. 100 shares. I'm just giving you an example. We are in a business of sustaining the SABC, informing people of South Africa.
Okay. Hlaudi, thank you. Anton, and I know we're running out of time, but I need to get this question into you, Anton. What is your view of Hlaudi?
Okay. Let me again put it in the context of the public broadcaster and the environment that we operate in. Again, very competitive environment. And that competitive environment is no different to any other broadcaster out there. So we are competing with other broadcasters and other media platforms for audiences. Likewise, we are competing for revenue, for commercial revenue to sustain the organization. So under Mr. Motsoeneng's leadership, we have put together a team that we refer to as the core business of the SABC, which is about the SABC. It's about broadcasting. It's our radio, television, news, and other units, technology, broadcasting technology, and also the commercial element thereof. We have introduced new channels, as we well know, the SABC News channel, the SABC Encore channel, and many other projects. You just referred to some of those projects. So if we put all of those in a basket and we look at the financial performance of the SABC, since Mr. Motsoeneng came on board, I can assure you that we've got a very decisive leader and a very inspirational leader to head up the core business of the SABC. So the criticism is unjustified.
think we'll leave it on that note then. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for talking to us, explaining the financials, explaining the losses, explaining salary increments, and hopefully putting to rest some of the conversations that have been had out there about the performance of not only our staff members here at the SABC and the running of it, but also the profits and losses reported last week. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us here on the program. Let me just once again thank Anton Heinus, Commercial Advisor here at the SABC, Hlaudi Motsoeneng, our Chief Operations Officer, and James Aguma, our Chief Financial Officers. Thank you again, gentlemen. All right, we're going to run slightly late with news, but it will follow straight after this ad break. Stay tuned.